Hey guys, welcome back to Moon Acres. It's the end of January and I'm starting to think about spring. We got our seeds in the mail the other day and now we got to figure out when to start them and do all of that planning. So I'll work on that tonight with a cold beer in hand, sitting down, going through all the seed packets and working my way back from the first frost date. I may even make a video to show you sort of how we do that mentally and put that stuff on paper. It helps out a whole bunch. But now is the time to start planning, start building, or getting into this. So I wanted to make this video because I'm getting a lot of questions from people who are now wanting to get into gardening. Maybe it's because we're getting old and turning into our parents, or maybe it's because the last year has freaked everybody out. Whatever the case, now is a great time to get started because we're all stuck at home. And for all the self-sufficient reasons and all that stuff, gardening's awesome. It's also relaxing, it's fun, it's rewarding, and you're learning something new every single day. So I really recommend it and I really enjoy it. I think you should get into it. Hopefully this video will make things a little bit easier for you to get started because sometimes it can be overcomplicated. But today we're gonna start this video with our seed setup. How do we get our germination going and then build the plant up through its stages before it goes out into the garden. So I'm going to show you this setup. Typically I will start planting the seeds into the seed trays about a month to 5 or 6 weeks out, just depending on the variety of the plant and those types of things. But today what I'm doing is I went through, just made sure that our setup is good to go for this season. It's been away all winter and I want to make sure that there aren't any surprises, so when I'm ready to start my seeds I don't have to run to the store for any last minute stuff. And the good news is it looks like we're set to jet, so let's go check it out here. So we're here in the action room. A couple weeks ago this thing had our chicken egg incubator on it. I put that away and now it's set up for our spring garden that we're going to start here before too long. It's on a wire rack. You see these a lot of times in kitchens. You can buy this at big box stores, usually 60, 70 bucks, and you can get them used sometimes if you're lucky, but they last forever. They're very versatile and you can move the shelves up and down. I love these. I use them for everything. So what I've got going on today is just some cheapo LED shop lights that I bought from Wally World over the years. I've got 4 of them, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom, and these are great. They're typically under $20 and I can raise them, adjust them as needed for the height of the plant depending on the stages and what's going on there. A nice thing too is that they emit a lot of light, but they don't emit heat. So they're not gonna melt your plastic trays or any of your totes or any of that stuff and catch your house on fire, because that'd be a huge bummer. So that's our basic setup. For germination, we're gonna start in these trays. These are just your generic trays that you see everywhere. I really like these. Let's bust one out and I'll show you that in a second. But underneath of it, we've got the heat pads. And I bought this off the internet. You can get them at the store or whatever. Just make sure that if you do get one, it is made for germinating seeds. So that way it doesn't get too hot and just totally fry everything before it even gets started. So that's underneath of there. But in our tray, if you've never seen one of these before, they come with a plastic lid, and that's really just for germination. After the seeds have started to come up, we leave that off of there so this thing can breathe and the seeds aren't getting too bogged down and mucky in there with humidity, because then we can have mold issues and other types of problems. So that's real important to keep an eye on. A lot of times when you buy this all comes as one connected sheet. You'll find when you're trying to actually take the seedlings out, it's a pain in the butt. So I take them and cut them up into sections like so. That way, when I'm trying to put these into cups to the next stage, I'll show you in a minute, they're really easy to remove. I can kind of squeeze on here as I slowly pull that seedling out by its leaves. We want to be careful not to pull it out by the stem, because you could mess up its vascular system if you accidentally squish that. But anyway, that's a conversation for a different day. But these are great because this holds water, and so basically it's like a little cheap micro hydroponic system for your seedlings. I really like these. They last typically about 2 to 3 years, depending on how much you're using them. You'll know it's time to buy a new one when it starts to leak a little bit. So, but they're cheap. It's like 5, maybe 10 bucks, and they're all over the place. So I like them just because they're easy. to access and replace. But when you do fill this up with your starter soil and your seeds, don't use compost or anything that's real heavy, like out of your compost bin. I've tried that before, and all my little seedlings were stunted and just really didn't do good. So spend a couple bucks and get some good seed starter mix, and that will really pay off. And these plants will get going a lot quicker. They'll be a lot healthier, and they'll be a lot more vigorous. And that's what we want, because when they go outside, they're gonna need to be strong, or else they're going to get their butts kicked by the environment. So our seeds, they'll germinate in here. Like I said, once they've mostly started kind of poking through, or if I'm starting to see mold issues, I take the top off and let them continue to grow. Since I'm inside and the ambient temperature is pretty warm, I will turn off the heat pad at that point and just let them kind of go on their own with the light. And I can drop that light down even further if need be. So you'll be able to tell from the plants if they do need light. If you see them starting to bend one way or another, they're trying to go to a stronger light source, or if their leaves and foliage aren't very green, things like that will tell you. But these LEDs, they do need to be pretty close, because they put out a lot of light, but it's not the same as like an actual grow light. So just keep that in mind, but your seedlings will tell you what you need to do. So the seedlings will stay in here for about a week or two, sometimes 3 weeks, just depending on how slow they are, what kind of plant they are. But when they start to look like they're growing just a little too tall, we call that leggy. That could be, you don't want them to stay like that for very long, because they could flop over, damage themselves. We don't want them to get leggy. So at that point, we'll take them out of the seed tray and we'll fill up a red Solo cup that has a couple holes drilled in it, and but fill this up with soil enough to where the legginess of the plant is going to be buried by soil. So I'll put a little bit of soil here if it's a real long seedling, and then just have a little bit of the plant with the vegetation, everything sticking out of the top, and then that stem that's buried underneath of there will grow roots and have a bigger kind of root bulb on it, if you will, and it will be a lot stronger when it's ready to go outside. The nice thing about having them in these totes is this will hold about 20 of those red Solo cups, give or take, depending on what kind of tote you get. And then we can put some water down in here as well, and it's just like a continuation of what was going on in the seed tray. And then too, when it's time to start hardening up the plants, we can take this outside very easily and set it kind of in the semi-shade or sun or wherever we need to, and move it around or bring it back inside, whatever the case may be, just so easily. So I really like this system. It's worked out well for us for several years, and it's just too simple. You can get all this stuff at the store like today. And then if you plant your plants just a little bit too soon, you get a little too jumpy with it, and they're in these cups for a while, it's typically not a big deal. So you can just kind of adjust the environment, maybe cut the light a little bit, stuff like that, so they're not going gangbusters while you're waiting on that first frost date or whenever it is that you'll feel good about planting them. So other things to keep in mind too is there's a lot of water involved with this process, and there's a lot of cords as well. So with your power strip there, don't have it right underneath of where something would leak on top of it. I've got mine kind of a little further out. You can sort of hard to tell, but just take those small little things into consideration and you'll be good to go. But when the plants are here, whether they're germinating or whether they're in the cups, I leave the lights on pretty much 24/7 until about maybe a week or so before I'm ready to start hardening them off outside. And I'll try to follow the normal cycle of what the daylight's doing now. That sounds really great, but usually it's just when I remember to turn the light on or turn it off. So anyway, but the plants don't care. They're pretty forgiving, and it's a really simple process. So spend a couple bucks, get this stuff. Again, you don't have to have a wire rack. You can improvise with anything. It's just the concepts that we're passing on. But with plants, they're gonna do so much better when they get outside if you help them grow in stages. If we take a plant, directly out of the seed tray and put it into the ground, it's going to have a much harder time getting going than if it's already established, has a nice root base and all that kind of stuff. So just getting more bang for your buck out of your investment here. But this is sort of the first stage, and here a little bit later today, I'm gonna go outside and I'll show you some recommendations for like how we did our garden and what might be appropriate for your size. But I'm all about keeping it simple, so that way you can keep doing this over and over again, and it's not a big process that you have to worry about every time the season changes. So anyway, hope that helps. If you got any questions, hit us up, and we'll see you next time. All right, thanks a lot. Bye.